Welcome into It's Just the Show, episode 26. I'm your host, Jay Stone, and with me, as always, is Cory Champney.
Hey.
And we're here to give you an update into the year 2025. So, episode 24, we did a Facebook Live on It's Just the Show's Facebook. We talked about the 1990s nostalgia. So, if you're coming off that episode here on this platform that you're listening to podcasts on, now we're going to get back into sports, and we want to talk about basketball first because that's going to be our shortest topic of discussion because it just frankly right now it's hard to watch.
And see, I love basketball.
I love basketball.
But I don't love this version of it.
I don't either. I'm involved in a lot of high school basketball right now. Habersham County's men's varsity basketball squad is playing at an elite level. We've already knocked off the defending state champions in North Oconee. We're 13-2 right now. Had a bad loss to Midtown High School out of the middle of downtown Atlanta. They're a great team, and they're bound for a state championship themselves. They're just shy of a private school. And then we had a loss where we really beat ourselves against Lambert at an invitational. But other than those two invitationals, we're undefeated on the road. In region play, we're undefeated at home all season long. So the high school stuff, it gives me hope for basketball. And then I sit down when I get home and I watch the Celtics and the Hawks play, and I'm like, what is this? It's just a shoot-off from the three-point line or the logo. And then every once in a while when the defense gets lazy, they pump fake that long shot and they get an isolation to the rim, and it's some dunk that everybody and their brother saw was coming. I mean, Stevie Ray saw this. Like, I don't I said Stevie Ray. Stevie, like we can't the blind men out here can see what
Ray
kind
Charles.
of basketball is going on. Stevie Wonder is who I was going for. But Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder out here knowing what's coming.
They both could see it.
It's so predictable. Another reason that these old heads argue with you young bucks about who the GOAT is because our GOAT, his brand of basketball is better than your GOAT's brand of basketball. LeBron James being the poster child for the NBA since he got drafted to now, that version of basketball flat out stinks. I don't like it. It's not fun to watch. There's no Mamba mentality. There's no guy that goes in that game and you're like in awe of him taking over like Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, they took over basketball games. When they did a ball fake or a jab step and they spun around and they shot a fadeaway, it felt like 100% of the time it went in. And LeBron was the opposite. It felt like if he was doing some cool stuff, you knew it was going to miss he was going to miss in a bad way, and his team was going to have to pick him up, and he was going to have to make up the difference on defense.
You know what? You know what the whole problem with the NBA is? Every player is the same,
and they're not relatable. The storylines are not relatable. They take games off. How is that relatable to you and I?
and then they complain about, I got to talk to you all in the media and. I got cramps. I can't be playing because my leg cramping up. And
we played back-to-back.
Yeah, we played back-to-back games. I'm tired. It's like, you know what? I work a 12-hour shift. I work on the weekends, and I work 36 hours in 3 days. So I don't want to hear about, we play back-to-back games.
This is my message to the NBA players, if it ever gets to them. I worked with guys who slept in tents and made money to build stages for thousands of people coming to spend thousands of dollars. Some people spent more to come to that show than the guys that built it got paid in a week. And they slept in tents and hammocks, and they spent their paychecks on sports tickets or ball caps or hoodies or bumper stickers or their favorite basketball team, and then you guys go out there and take nights off. Guys are sleeping with their heads in the mud. Guys are fighting wars in foreign countries with their Celtics jersey on under their uniform defending this country, and you guys can't play 4 games in a week because your feet hurt. You have got to stop doing that. You're the biggest disappointment in professional sports in the world right now.
It goes back to the way they're raised. We just talked about last week about growing up in the 90s where if we got a cut, a scrape, whatever, all they do is throw hydrogen peroxide on it and go suck it up, go back out there and play. There is none of that. You know why we can't really remember anything? Because we probably had multiple concussions as kids.
We're the CTE generation.
Yeah, and play the sports. I don't remember, but I've heard stories of a coach telling me, Cory, how many fingers am I holding up? I told him like 12. And he's close enough. Go back in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the thing of I played hurt all the time. I played beat up all the time. You did too.
Yep.
We were bruised. We were beaten. We were battered. But if we complained about it, guess what? We would be called girls. We'd be called soft. We'd be called expletives. And the coaches could say that. But now you have to pet the kid. Oh, it's okay. You'll be all right. You're such a good player. Here's a participation trophy. You didn't win anything, but here, everybody gets a trophy. They're like Oprah. You get a trophy. You get a trophy. You get a trophy. No.
It's awful.
No, you got to win something to get a trophy, son.
The NBA is what is wrong with the world today. Y'all need to toughen up, play all 82 games. It's not 162 game baseball season. It's not 17, 18 weeks in the NFL. You're not getting your head knocked off every week. You're not getting passes laid out over the middle for Sauce Gardner to knock you out. Or what's the guy from the Texans who's been suspended a bunch of times for
I don't know
for
name
targeting?
Off the top of my head.
You're not worried about those dudes. You're worried about LeBron James flopping. You're worried about somebody's receding hairline, for God's sakes. There's nothing to be scared of. Go out there and play every freaking game. Get in shape. You get paid millions of dollars to play basketball. You also get that money to practice and to eat right and to condition and focus on your job. That's all those things that you're supposed to do is also why you get the money. You don't get the paycheck just to show up and play on prime time. That ain't what we're paying for.
You play maybe 1 or 2 games in a row and then have a day off. Let me put this in perspective. I'm going to destroy every single NBA player right now. Matt Olson of the Atlanta Braves played 162 games of a baseball season. That is tough. That is a hard thing to do.
That's double basketball
And he played
season.
baseball, or he played first base. So he's involved in every single play just about on the field.
Yep.
If it's a ground ball, he has to go to the bag, stretch. If it's a pickoff at first, guess what?
Yep.
He's involved in it. And not to mention, he has to run down pop-ups if they're hit over to his side of the field.
And he has the bat. He's got to play offense, too.
And he's got a bat. He's got to field bunts. You know, if they're hit that way, there's so many things he's got to do. He played 162 games.
164.
Yeah.
He played in the 2 wild card games.
And if you want to count spring training, the dude played from March to October. Didn't complain one time.
Nope.
Cal Ripken played in, 2,000-something straight games?
Yep, never said a word.
And they play out in the heat. They don't get to play in arenas, and I get it. The arenas get hot with those lights and everything else.
Okay.
But listen, and people say, oh, well, they get to rest between innings and stuff like that. Basketball players don't play the whole game.
Your basketball game's over before the 7th inning stretch.
They rotate in and out.
Yeah.
They're not playing a whole entire game. They sit for a little bit. They get to drink some water. Yeah, they go in the dugout and they drink water, but a lot of those dugouts don't have air condition.
Yeah, no kidding.
They're hot.
Yeah.
You know? They don't have a halftime either.
Yeah, I guarantee you in the middle of summer, nobody wants to go play the Oakland A's.
No.
Nobody wants to go to that ratchet stadium that's falling apart and probably smells like booze
They won't
and
have
pee.
to anymore because they're
Yeah.
going to be playing a minor league stadium this year, and then I think in L.A. or Vegas next year.
Yeah.
But it's the fact of the matter is you're soft.
Mm-hmm.
You're soft, brah.
You're soft, bro.
And you know it. And right now the NBA is, as their little fans would like to say, is mid.
Yeah.
They're mid right now.
Your 2 winningest teams in the NBA are small market teams, the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I do believe that is because those teams are tougher. They're involved in their communities. The fans know the players. The players have impressions on the fans. They're small market. They represent it. I can't speak for your Celtics, but I don't feel like my Atlanta Hawks are very Atlanta. I don't feel they're very tough. I don't feel like our 500 team does anything but fit the Atlanta losing sports culture.
That's because there isn't a legacy with the Hawks. The
Yeah.
Hawks have never really they've never been to a final. They've never really have done anything for Atlanta to really, really cheer about. They've come close, but the Celtics and the Lakers, and there might be a few other teams that are considered actual dynasties in the NBA. The Knicks, those are probably the three-headed monster dynasty. So it's going to be different in Boston. It's going to be different in LA. It's going to be different in New York because those are legacy teams. So no matter what they do, they're always going to be looked upon as this is the Celtics or this is the Lakers or this is, the Knicks. Atlanta doesn't have that with the Hawks. And the Hawks have been here since, the 70s? And it's never really been that way. Yeah, you had Dominique Wilkins, and then you had the team with Dikembe Mutombo in the late 90s, and then you had, the team that went on a run there with
when Trey was really young,
Yeah.
when we made it to the Eastern Conference Finals and got knocked out by Giannis.
Yeah. And so
Game 7, I might add.
it's just so frustrating because the NBA we grew up with is dead and gone. And it's, to me, the only thing I can say is if you have to watch an NBA game, I would wait till the playoffs.
Yeah, man. The playoffs are electric because they play the whole game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like, for whatever reason, some of these games, both teams are not really involved until about halfway through the third quarter.
Yeah.
When it's like, oh, crap, if we don't start playing good, then this game's going to be out of reach.
I mean, I'm so sick and tired of already talking about the NBA.
Yeah, because I said in our introduction, this will be our shortest segment.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on from the awful NBA.
Let's save college football for last.
Oh, I agree.
Because we have a lot to talk about. Let's move on to the NBA, or not NBA, sorry, NFL real fast. We know all the playoff teams in the NFL. As of right now, we have the matchups right here. So on Saturday, January 11th, the wild card games. You have the LA Chargers versus the Houston Texans. Then you have, talk about a good game, a rivalry game. The Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. That's also on the 11th. On Sunday, January 12th, the Denver Broncos against the Buffalo Bills. The Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles. The Commanders against the Buccaneers. And then Monday, January 13th, this is going to be a good game. The Vikings and the Rams. And the two teams that got the byes, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions.
And the Detroit Lions got that bye after absolutely slapping the dog crap out of the Vikings, 31-9 in the regular season finale.
And that was the first game they lost at home.
That was not on my bingo card.
No.
No touchdowns? Are you kidding me?
But, I mean, I'm interested in seeing the Steelers-Ravens game because that is
that's epic.
That's a rivalry game.
I just don't know what the Steelers are going to do. They're on a 5-game skid.
Yeah.
They could have missed the playoffs. They wouldn't have started so hot.
I like the Chargers over the Texans. I like the Ravens over the Steelers.
Yep.
I think the Bills are going to squash the Broncos. I don't. You know what? That's probably going to be a closer game than we think. But I mean, they have Buffalo at 8.5.
Broncos defense plays lights out.
But
really good.
We saw what Josh Allen did against Kansas City.
It's true.
When he says, "Give me the ball, I'm going to take it and I'm going to win."
But nothing does justice for a rookie's confidence like that game that Bo Nix just got to play against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
I know he's playing against 2s, 3s, and 4s, but he started that game out 17 for 17 as an NFL pro quarterback.
Yeah.
That period does not happen very often. I think a handful of times, single, maybe double-digit amount of times in the history of the National Football League since the merger has somebody started a game out 17 for 17 in their rookie season, especially in the final week of the season against the defending Super Bowl champions. I don't care who's on the field. Look at who's on the roster. I don't care if they didn't even play. That is serious. And they won 31-0 over the defending Super Bowl champions who would rather have lost 31-0 than play the Cincinnati Bengals.
How petty! Because they've beaten them in the playoffs before. The Bengals have beaten the Chiefs.
Exactly.
And then they're like, we don't want nothing to do with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and we don't want nothing to do with that.
The last time the Bengals beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, they went to the Super Bowl and then lost to Matthew Stafford.
Yep.
So
But
I wouldn't want to play the Bengals right
No.
now either. Joe Burrow, if I was an AP voter, if I had a vote in the MVP and all this college football stuff, which I hope to one day have, I would be voting for Joe Burrow for the MVP.
Oh, yeah.
I know there's people out there that have said some things that make perfect sense, like your numbers are inflated when you're on a losing team and you're playing from behind. I think not Desmond Howard. I can't remember who said it. I think it was on the Greeny show. But they were talking about if you're playing from behind and your defense sucks, then your numbers are going to be inflated. That is true, but they're only going to inflate if you're making those connections.
Yeah.
If you're still putting up points, it doesn't matter if you're playing from behind all the time and not winning.
You know what that is an equivalent to for Bo Nix? That's an equivalent to like in college when you play a cupcake team.
Yep.
And it's going to inflate your numbers, but also you're working on stuff at that point.
Yep.
You're trying to get down a connection with your receivers and get comfortable in the pocket and stuff like that.
Every person playing in that game on both sides of the field, starters or not, make more than you and I combined a year. So it's not like they were scrubs or practice team.
Yeah.
They are NFL athletes out there.
How about this matchup? How about the Packers and the Eagles?
That is going to be one I think is going to be a little lopsided. I think the Packers are falling off at the worst time. I think they had a real bad showing against the Bears at home to close the season.
I mean, Jordan Love didn't play the whole game, but
That's true, but Caleb Williams did and only threw 8 incompletions. Caleb Williams balled out, I will say.
Ever since that game against the Patriots where he got sacked 9 times, he's been – and there was another game after that, and then after that he's just been –
money.
Ever since they fired their head coach.
Yeah, Eberflus or –
Yeah, Eberflus.
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 Yeah, when they got rid of that joke, because that's what he is. He's a joke. You really just lost a game by what did he lose 2 or 3 points?
Yeah.
with 2 or 3 timeouts left.
Yeah.
That's just unacceptable.
That's the same thing with Mayo in New England. Like he didn't know how to call a play at a certain time.
Yeah.
Didn't know how to use his
Situational
timeouts.
football.
Situational football, and that comes from not being a head coach.
Yep.
You can be a great player and not be a good coach. And, that's the reason why everybody was like, oh, I'm surprised they fired him after a 4-13 season. I'm not. They fired Bill Belichick after a 4-13 season.
Yeah. Sure did.
But Gerard Mayo showed that he was, he couldn't keep his head above water. He didn't know what he was doing. And you know what? He's probably going to go off and be a great defensive coordinator somewhere. But just not now as a head coach. Maybe another 5 years down the road, maybe another 2 or 3 years down the road. But go, as they say in the wrestling business, go learn a new hold and come back and, maybe you get somewhere else where there's a better situation. But he wasn't the type of head coach that could build a roster and help build a team up. Now, they do have a couple of guys out there like Ben Johnson, the OC of Detroit, Mike Vrabel. A lot of people were like, we don't want Mike Vrabel because he played under Belichick. Yeah, but he didn't come from that coaching tree.
That's right.
He coached at Tennessee. He coached college ball. And he proved at Tennessee that he can win. Getting back to the playoffs.
Did you know that Kevin O'Connell was a pro football quarterback, the coach for the Vikings?
Yeah, he was drafted by the Patriots.
I didn't.
He's another one that sat on the bench and learned from Bill Belichick.
And then never played.
No.
Played 2 games. He was 4-6 for 23 yards, and he got sacked.
And here's another. This, to me, is an interesting game. The Commanders against the Buccaneers. Let's see how Jalen Daniels plays in pressure. Or Jaden Daniels. I think that I think this is going to be a test for him. I think the Buccaneers are probably the worst 10-7 team.
The Bucs are favored by 3 at home. That's January 12th, 8 o'clock in Tampa. It's going to be oddly cold, a little windy. These are my predictions.
I mean, it's probably going to be – it's Tampa, so, I mean, it's going to be a little – it's probably going to be 60s. But
I doubt it.
But
8 o'clock?
Yeah, 50s or 60s, but you're going to
50s tops.
The major thing is you're going to have the breeze coming in off the bay.
Yep.
You're going to have that ocean breeze. So it's going to be windy. And I don't know, though. The Commanders are used to playing in bad weather up there, playing in Maryland, D.C. area. So that's not going to be a factor.
Just think about the cold weather moving through right now.
The game that I'd be concerned with, January 12th at Buffalo, the Broncos should know how to play in cold weather, but that's going to be a snow game. But none of these teams really, until you get to the Chargers or the Texans. I mean, most of these teams are cold weather teams. The Vikings and the Rams, I mean, they both play in retractable roof stadiums, but I mean, still.
Yeah, everybody's going to play in cold weather except for those two California teams. I mean, even Kansas City is going to have a snow game. I guarantee you, whoever ends up playing in Kansas City in the second round, it's going to be snowing. And it's going to be miserable.
Detroit doesn't matter because it's a dome, but it's going to be one of those things where okay, so I actually like the playoffs this year. I think there's a lot of intriguing matchups. I think that Vikings-Rams game is going to be good. I think the Commanders-Buccaneers game, there's that whole storyline with the rookie quarterback and Baker Mayfield.
And Baker's been on fire. I've always been a Baker fan.
And then
even when he was at Oklahoma.
Yeah, and then you had the Broncos and Bills where it's going to be Josh Allen. This could be his year. But you also have Bo Nix, who's another rookie quarterback. And then you have the Steelers and Ravens, which is a rivalry, and they're playing for the third time this year. And then
in Baltimore.
Yep, and then
where the storyline with that one is Lamar Jackson going to win another MVP. Yeah. Is this the best team he's ever had?
Yep.
This is by far the best running back he's ever had behind him.
And the Chargers-Texans, this is the hottest quarterback in the league right now, Justin Herbert, going up against a decent defense. And then you have the Texans being led by Stroud, who surprised a lot of people last year, and this year they surprised nobody. So that is an intriguing matchup in its own right. I also think that the Vikings-Rams, you have Mr. Surprise of all surprises, Sam Darnold.
But which Sam Darnold's going to show up? The one that played last night in Detroit? Against Detroit, I mean? I don't think so.
I think that was a team that was – I want to say –
You can't say enough about the Lions' backups. They had their third in the NFL.
Everybody can say what they want about Dan Campbell, but that team is a very well coached team.
Very well coached.
And
lots of depth.
They play for their coach, and he is good at taking situations and getting his team riled up to win. And they have his attitude.
Mm-hmm.
They've accepted the culture that he's brought there, and they have his attitude. You know, I like
But what I was getting at is that depleted Lions defense with all those backups, and your best defensive end, Aiden Hutchinson, is still out, and you go out there with backup players everywhere on the D-line, linebackers, secondary, you got backups everywhere, and you go out there and you hold one of the NFL's number one offenses to no touchdowns. You kept Aaron Jones out of the end zone.
It's that old Bill Belichick mantra of next man up. Do your job. You know, you're an NFL player for a reason. Who cares if you're third or fourth string? Mm-hmm. Step up and become first string. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
It's like when someone in varsity gets hurt and you're the JV backup and you got to go in there. Well, no, you know what, young buck, now it's your time to shine.
That's right. And what's crazy is all of the home teams are favored in these matchups except the Chargers are favored on the road in Houston, and the Vikings are favored on the road in L.A. against the Rams. All other home teams are favored. Some just by a field goal, Buffalo by a touchdown, and then some Baltimore is favored by a touchdown and a field goal. They're favored by 10.
Yeah. You know what? I like Detroit so much. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Detroit, Kansas City, or maybe even Detroit and Buffalo, or maybe it could be Detroit and Baltimore. But
here's the thing I don't like. The Ravens-Steelers game is only available on Prime Video.
Yeah. And you know
I'm going to watch it because I have my mom's Prime Video.
That could end up being a trap game for the Ravens, too, if they're not careful.
It could be, but what I hate is that you have to have a Prime Video subscription to be able to watch that football game. Are you kidding me?
Or you can bootleg it.
I mean, you can bootleg it, watch it on TikTok. Yeah. TikTok don't go away for another week, you know what I mean?
I know what I'm saying.
I tell you what, I think Lamar's going to win that one, though, by 2 touchdowns.
I like the tickety talks.
I like him TikToks. I like to sit there and lose all my time and just look at the different facts and sports stuff.
They remind me of a big old clock going tick-tock, 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 tick-tock.
It reminded me of the Captain Hook movie.
Yeah.
But yeah,
clocks.
So all right, so let's do some pick'ems. First round, Texans Chargers.
I'm going with Justin Herbert and the Chargers.
We agree. Ravens Steelers.
Man, you gotta be an idiot not to pick the Ravens.
Agreed. I'm a smart fella. Moving on. Bills Broncos.
I want to jump on the Bo Nix train, but I don't think it's this year. I think it might be next year or the year after. Josh Allen can be him when he wants to be, and I think he is hungry for that Super Bowl ring. I'm going Bills.
I can't argue with that either. Bills move on. Rams Vikings.
Oh man,
Rams at home, Vikings on the road.
Yeah, I don't really think it matters as much as it used to. Home field advantage, especially in the NFL, I don't really think it matters. I think the Vikings are going to come in after getting hit in the mouth. I think they're going to come in with a vengeance and with something to prove, and the Rams are going to be the ones in their way. I think the Rams are still too beat up. They don't have Cooper Kupp. Matthew Stafford's only getting older. I think this might be the end of the road for this Rams juggernaut of a team.
This is the first one I disagree on. I think Stafford's got 2 or 3 more seasons left in him. I think Puka Nakua and Kyron Williams are going to be enough. I think Aaron Donald's too much for the front five for Minnesota. I think Minnesota is in their head after getting beat that bad against the Lions and losing the first-round bye. I think it's too much to overcome. I do think it's a competitive game. I think Kevin O'Connell has some great play calls, and Sam Darnold's just not able to execute where Matthew Stafford is. I think the difference is going to be a pick late in the game by one of the two quarterbacks. So either Cory's right, and it is Stafford throws a pick to end the game, or I'm right and Darnold throws a pick and the Rams move on to the next round. So moving on to Bucks Commanders in Tampa.
I like Commanders. Just everything they've done this year, they have really designed their offense around Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels has stepped up and become a player. He's shown that he can do it time and time again. He has a great wide receiver to throw it to in McLaurin. And their defense has been stout this year. Even though it's in Tampa, I like the Washington Commanders.
I'm almost there with you. I just think there's some magic left in Baker's arm. I really feel like Baker has the team that could get him to an NFC championship this year. So this is where Cory and I tend to differ. We usually agree heavily on the AFC and disagree on the NFC. So I'm going to go Bucks. And Rams, he's going Vikings and Commanders. What about Eagles-Packers in Philly?
Eagles.
4:30 game.
The only thing I got to say is Shaquan Barkley and the Eagles. The Eagles.
Yeah, I think the Eagles are too much for the Packers. They're very efficient offense. They're efficient in the red zone. They're efficient in short yardage. They're efficient on defense.
Barkley's going to run all over that defense.
Yeah, I think Saquon has a highlight game, and if for some reason they find a way to shut him down, there are more scary monsters on that offense.
Yes.
They've got a Heisman Award winner in Devontae Smith. They've got A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
I mean,
and they have Jalen Hurts who can tuck it and run too, if he wants to.
They got great tight ends. They got
RPO all over the place.
Yep, beat me to it. So yeah, we both agree on that. Eagles are too much for the Packers. They move on. So we'll take the AFC bracket all the way to the Super Bowl before we go back to the NFC. So second round is going to have, if it turns out the way we say, that means that the Chiefs will have the Chargers in Kansas City, and the Bills will have the Ravens up yonder.
That Bills-Ravens game would be a good game. But you know what?
Probably be in the snow for sure.
If it's in the snow, I think you have to go with the advantage for the Ravens because it plays right into their hands with the run game. But Josh Allen knows how to play in the snow too.
Yep.
But it's such a tough one. You know, since it's being played in Buffalo, and I think Buffalo is really the only team that has a home field advantage because of the weather, I would have to go Buffalo getting the edge, and it would probably be like a last-second field goal in the snow type situation.
One of those where they just left a little too much time on the clock for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to come down to Justin Tucker or Bates.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of those boys are going to have to drill Adam Vinatieri-esque field goal in the snow to win.
Yep.
If there's no snow on the ground, one, that's going to be disappointing, and two, it's not going to be as epic. But I do think Ravens, Bills, up there in the Northeast. Bills by just a couple, maybe even 1 point. It would not surprise me if they went to overtime. Both teams had a possession and ended it on a field goal.
I was gonna say overtime, but I think it's gonna be one of those games where it's gonna be a lot of stuff on the ground. If you are passing, it's gonna be, screens.
Yep. And we're both diehard dog fans, so
Yep.
James Cook all the way. But if we're being honest here, Lamar's got the better running back. Lamar's got the better offensive line.
Yeah, but
Josh is the better athlete, size, speed. When I say the better athlete, Lamar's faster. He's quicker. He has a better fastball.
Yeah, Josh Allen is Derrick Henry as a quarterback.
Exactly. That's what he's bigger, stronger, and almost as fast and almost as athletic. So that makes him more difficult for defenses to defend against. With Lamar, if you can get 3 or 4 players to corner him and use the sideline as a defender, he'll just run out of bounds. With Josh, he might break your safety's neck. While the linebacker is dragging on his thigh.
If he gets past the big beefy D lineman into the linebacking core, now you have guys the same size as him, and then if he gets past them, he's into the secondary, and those dudes stand no chance.
Lamar's not the only quarterback in that game that can break one for 40. Josh has done it multiple times.
And I'm not so sure that Lamar's played enough snow to run in that stuff.
I'm agreeing. There's going to be some strategy that comes into that Ravens-Bills game in the second round. What about Chiefs-Chargers?
Oh, man, another interdivision. That's an interdivision game. Everybody's going to be on the Mahomes train, but this Chiefs team is not a very good 14-2 team. There are so many weaknesses on this team. They find ways to win. Sometimes they have help by the Zebras.
15-2.
15-2, sorry. And sometimes they have help by the Zebras, and sometimes it's Patrick Mahomes doing Patrick Mahomes things. You got to give the guy credit because he does things outside of the pocket, and his arm is incredible. I want to say Justin Herbert so bad, but I don't think the Chargers have enough.
I don't think they do either.
I think Justin Herbert's going to do everything he can to carry this team, and I think it's going to be a lot closer game than a lot of people are going to give them credit for. I still think that they end up losing it by maybe a touchdown, maybe a field goal, but it's going to be at least 3 to 7 points somewhere in there.
21-27, 28-24.
Something like that, yeah.
I think it's going to be a 4-point game, one where the Chargers have to get a touchdown to make it count.
And I can see, the Chargers driving down the field with, 30, 45 seconds left, and he chucks one into the end zone, and it gets intercepted or it gets knocked down, and that's the end of the game.
Yep,
it's going to be some excitement to it.
Yeah, I agree. It'll come down to Chiefs, Chargers with the ball last down by more than a field goal.
Yeah.
So they're not trying to get into range. They have to get into the end zone. That gives Spagnuolo, one of the greatest defensive coordinators in the game, the opportunity to play it safe, keep the ball in front of his defense.
And I can even see it being like a 6-point game where they need the touchdown and the extra point to win. And, but I mean, that
even having the extra point blocked in the snow or some crazy stuff.
And that leaves us with the AFC Championship. I think that everybody we got earlier this year.
Bills, Chiefs.
But I think that's the one the NFL wants. But I think that's the way that the brackets will set up.
I think that we're going to get the same thing we got 2 years ago. Josh beat Patrick in the regular season, and then in the AFC Championship, it came down to the wire, and Patrick won again, and then went on and won a Super Bowl. I think that it's going to get down to the wire. I want to believe Josh wins this time.
I think Josh is more motivated this year than he was any other year. Unfortunately, last year they got beat by a missed field goal.
Yeah.
And Josh Allen did everything he could to win this game. I think this year Josh Allen's going to make sure that don't come down to a field goal.
I agree. I think that they jump on the Chiefs early. Mm-hmm. I think they capitalize on mistakes. I think Pacheco or one of that running back committee puts it on the ground, and because that happens a lot after a bye.
I could even see them forcing Mahomes to make a errant throw.
Trying to force something to Kelsey.
Or because – he's not going to throw to his receivers.
And he's not going to force it downfield. He's going to force it underneath. Mm-hmm. That's his wheelhouse.
And that's what you do. You send in a safety on Kelsey, someone who can jump in front of it, jump the route, and take off with it. I'm not going to say it's a pick six, but they could just jump up and do it. And
you get a
'em.
wiry guy like DeMar Hamlin, shadowing, just spying Kelsey.
Yeah, or a strip sack could happen.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Mahomes gets a little loose with the ball every once in a while, and
trying to extend plays,
and you could come out as he's got the ball down here and just knock it away.
Mm-hmm.
The Bills have a really good defense that's good at creating turnovers. We saw it in the game against Kansas City. I think that they're going to go in with a little different look. The only thing that won't be different is Josh Allen's going to be him again.
I'll say the same thing I said in Super Bowl 50 when the Carolina Panthers were trying to win the Super Bowl. That other team has Von Miller. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. And
the Bills have Von Miller.
And Von Miller is he's a scheme guy now, so they bring him in only in situational situations. Yeah, I didn't mean to say that like that. But anyways, he still has old legs, but they bring him in obvious, pass rush situations where he's going to get to the quarterback. And
because he's getting there on skill, not speed and power.
He's one of those where like in Major League where the old pitcher,
yes.
He had the Vaseline on his arm, he had the baking soda, he had all this other stuff. This is the Vaseline ball right here. He's getting by on what he knows, not necessarily that he's still got. I don't have a 99-mile-per-hour fastball left in me, son. I got to use all these tricks.
Exactly.
So
it's like one of our favorite pitchers, Maddox.
Yeah.
He was never throwing 100-mile-an-hour anything.
But he can outsmart you, and that's the thing. Yep. He has moves where he can outsmart other offensive linemen and get around them. But he's not beating anybody around the corner.
No. You look at his incentive sack, his last sack of the season, that got him his bag.
Yeah.
And he starts inside with a jab step. He gets the tackle back on his heels, and then he moves under the tackle's wing. And when the tackle finally plants and gets his hips over his ankles, he's already got a hand on the quarterback. So when the tackle puts his arm down, he helps him sack.
The Bills are going to go to the Super Bowl this year.
I agree. I think it's Bills.
It's Josh Allen's year, and in that franchise, they need a Super Bowl. They need a Super Bowl win. Bad. You're talking about a team that lost 4 in a row.
Right.
But yeah, that's the pick for the AFC is the Buffalo Bills.
So as we travel back to our NFC side, we'll find out here in the second round if which one we pick opposite of each other even make a difference. So I picked the Rams over the Vikings and the Bucks over the Commanders. Cory picked the inverse of that. We both picked the Eagles. So Lions and Eagles are your home team no matter what. And then if the Rams were to win, the Rams would go to Detroit. If the Bucks and the Rams, so Rams would go to Detroit. I got the Lions moving on to the NFC Championship. Bucks go to Philly. Too cold for them, even though I would love to see Baker get hot in the playoffs and make a Super Bowl run. I've always wanted to see him on the big stage ever since that 2017-2018 Rose Bowl against Georgia in the double overtime thriller. Seeing it in person just hits different. So my first Rose Bowl experience like Baker was really the icing on the cake of getting to watch the Dogs walk it off with Sony Michel and the Wild Dog there. So I think regardless of who we pick here, do you agree Lions, Eagles in the NFC Championship?
Those are the two best teams in the NFC. Those are going to be the two teams that will be in the NFC Championship, barring a catastrophic loss like an injury to Saquon Barkley or something. Those are the two teams that are going to be there.
Because even if the Vikings do beat the Rams, like you say, and the Commanders do beat the Bucks, the Vikings go to Philly and the Commanders go to Detroit. So it won't be a rematch anyway.
And I would say that Minnesota would play in Philadelphia even if it's cold, but they play in a dome.
Yeah, they play in a dome.
They play in a retractable roof stadium, so they're not used to that.
Right.
Philadelphia will still run all over that Vikings defense. So NFC Championship game, and I'll tell you one thing. This will be I think this is the NFC Championship game that I want to see. Yeah,
the Detroit and Philadelphia.
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Yes. And you know what? Just because I've been on their bandwagon all year long, I'm rolling with Detroit. This is a team that's never been to a Super Bowl. This is a franchise that's never ever been to a Super Bowl. They came close last year. They went to the NFC Championship last year.
Never ever.
And they lost. Never, ever, ever. And they lost. And Eminem and Kid Rock are going to be so happy to go to a Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
And, Dan Campbell, he's different. He's a different type of coach. He's that throwback coach.
He's my hero.
And he's going to lead this team. Jared Goff is going to lead this team, and Jared Goff's going to play in his second Super Bowl. I want to see the Buffalo-Detroit Super Bowl. This is the most intriguing Super Bowl matchup that we can have this year.
I agree, and I think that's what the fans want to see.
Yep, and I think that's what we're going to get. Because as much as Philadelphia can steamroll over anybody else, that Detroit defense is going to give them a tough time. And Aiden Hutchinson might be back by the time the NFC Championship rolls around.
Here's what I don't want to see happen. I don't want to see some upsets in the first round, like Denver going to Buffalo and beating Buffalo, and then the Ravens beating Denver, and then the Chiefs beating the Ravens, and the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl anyway.
Or the Steelers, end up beating the Ravens.
Don't talk about like that.
And I was like,
don't speak of that nonsense.
And, something like that. It was like the Texans last year, surprised everybody. The Lions surprised everybody last year.
I don't hate, but I just don't like the Steelers. I don't have very many Steeler friends. Hey, even when Big Ben was in the Super Bowl, I rooted for the Cardinals.
I'm a Patriots fan. I don't like the Steelers either.
Yeah.
I never have. I never will. And, so I think that's going to be the Super Bowl.
There's two Steelers I've been a fan of ever.
Hines
Only
Ward?
two. Hines Ward and Jerome Bettis.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's a running back thing.
So we'll just leave the Super Bowl right there. I don't want to predict it yet, but
I will. I think Buffalo wins the Super Bowl 34-31 over Detroit.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. Josh Allen's just way too motivated.
It's not going to be outdoors. It's going to be an evenly matched game. I think that Josh Allen's who he is as a person is going to fit the game. Super Bowl 59 the best.
I think this is it for Josh Allen. If they don't win it, Buffalo is not going to get this close to Super Bowl ever again.
I can agree. A lot of things are going to change in the offseason.
I think this team is hit its stride, hit its course, and this is it for them. Their dynasty of ruling the AFC East the last 3-4 years. It's not really a dynasty, but their dominance the last 3 or 4 years over the AFC East, it's going to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And the Jets are horrible. Miami's horrible. New England's horrible. It's just been the Bills. It's going to come to an end because all those teams except for the Jets, are going to get better.
The Jets might get better. The Jets,
it won't be with Aaron Rodgers.
Fire some people. I think if Aaron just puts on a headset, man, and just get us another Jordan Love, like – you can't sling it on time in the back of the end zone anymore, and that's okay. But you can tell somebody else when and how to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
You can tell them what they're seeing.
He doesn't want to do that.
What do you want to do? Go hide in a cave, bud?
No, he wants to keep playing.
Well, he can't.
I know, but you can't tell him that.
Somebody's going to have to.
Well,
DeMonte needs to. Bro, your 500th touchdown took you 3 games because you were trying to get it to one guy, and you ended up having to throw it to old fat white kid, Tyler Conklin.
Yeah.
Like, you wanted that 500th touchdown to go to Devontae so bad you lost 2 games.
What the Jets need to do is what New England did this year. Just tear it all down, start scratch.
Over. See what you got.
I know they've been starting from scratch the last 30 years, but they need to really just put motivation into it.
The Jets need to humble themselves and take a page out of the Green Bay book.
And see, New England learned something this year. They learned who the cornerstones of their team are. They know that they have a franchise quarterback in Drake May. They know that they have a franchise corner in Christian Gonzalez. They know that if Christian Barmore ever gets over his blood clots, that he is a franchise defensive end. They have Ramondre Stevenson, who is a good running back.
We're not going to talk about fantasy football on that note.
Yeah, I know. I lost the championship because I had, because everybody was resting their players.
And Chase Brown died on the 1-yard line.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Cincinnati.
Yeah, and then, but Demario Douglas, Pop Douglas, is a good number 2 or number 3 receiver. They need to get a number 1 receiver, but they know what their cornerstones are. They know what they can build around.
And you got 2 great tight ends in Hooper and Henry.
Yeah, and they want to bring Hooper back again. And Henry signed a long-term extension.
Yeah.
So, and that was Drake May's security blanket was Hunter Henry. They have the foundation to build. When people say that this is the worst roster in the NFL, I disagree.
Yeah, I disagree.
They did win 4 games, so it can't be that bad.
The worst roster in the NFL is the New York Jets. It's the worst roster in the NFL.
I could argue the Giants.
The Giants have Malik Neighbors,
That's it.
and Tyrone Tracy.
But they have something to build around, too.
Yeah.
The Jets have a group of veterans who are...
Drew Lock has looked good in these past few games.
They have a group of veterans. The Jets have a group of veterans that don't want to play.
Yeah.
They're just there for the money, waiting for free agency. But
I hate that.
on that note, let's just touch on it real quick. The NCAA playoffs. Kudos to Gunnar Stockton because he looked like the future of Georgia football. He looked like the quarterback for the 2025 season. He looked good.
Great game, kid.
He didn't lose it. The O-line lost it.
Yeah.
The special teams lost it.
The left tackle lost us that game.
And you cannot blame the defense either. The defense only gave up. Well, they gave up a short yardage touchdown, and then they gave
double-digit passing yards.
Yep.
Less than 100, man. They couldn't throw the football. They had to run it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why that number's inflated. And also, at the end of the game, they're strategically just trying to run clock. They're not trying to get down the field in a hurry, which opens up the run game tremendously.
They ate up like 8 minutes of clock, to take away another, possession away from Georgia.
Yep.
And going forward on these fourth downs and not kicking field goals, I understand where Kirby Smart was coming from, but you could have scored at least 9 more points.
Yep. And that puts you within a touchdown. That's striking distance.
I mean, you're looking at a 23-16 game at that point.
If you got a 6-point game with 3 minutes to go and you throw that fade to Lawson Lucky over the pylon and he trips and doesn't get to it and it's only a 6-point game, you might get that call.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a two-score game with hardly any time left. Yep. They're not wasting their time with that call.
Nope.
I mean, and that's just me watching a lot of football.
But the thing is,
it's not supposed to be the way refs think.
I hate that Georgia lost. And if there's any silver lining to it, at least they lost to a team that's in our logo.
Yeah, I agree with
Notre
that.
Notre Dame's defense looked like a championship-winning defense.
I'm going to say this right now, and I'm not going to say another thing about Notre Dame, even for at least for a few episodes. This is the best Notre Dame team in my lifetime.
So my dad summed it up pretty well this weekend. He said this Notre Dame team looked like the Notre Dame team from the 80s that's built on running the football, RPO with the quarterback, and defense.
They're very, very well coached.
They are.
Freeman is so easily
How much did Marvin Freeman look like Kevin Ellison a lot of times?
Yeah, right.
I thought that on the field.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this guy looks like Kevin Ellison all the time. But he is very, very well coached, and he made Brian Kelly look like an idiot for choosing LSU over Notre Dame.
Because not only did LSU play in the Gator Tag Slayer Bowl or something, and they beat Baylor, your boy took part of your roster to a 90.
And 90% of this roster is his players, his recruits. And you know what? They're not doing it with the NIL.
Yep.
Because they said it on there. Notre Dame doesn't major in the NIL. They will minor in it, but they're not going to major in it. These are guys they're going out and they're recruiting and bringing to Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. So kudos to them for building a program. Georgia, on the other hand, the future's still bright in Georgia.
And, if you look at our graduating seniors, people can say whatever they want about our transfer rate. Look at our graduating class. They're seniors in that graduating class, okay? That's what a senior is. They graduate, and they were there from freshman year. Mm-hmm. They're seniors in this class that have 2 national championships on their resume, meaning they were here their freshman and sophomore year. We got guys that stayed here the whole time. We build our talent, too.
They have a core. Etienne's already said he wants to come back and play at Georgia. You got Gunnar Stockton coming back. You have all these wide receivers coming back.
Tuggle will be back.
Yeah. I mean, Nitro already said that he's coming back. So, I mean, you have a foundation coming in. And now we know that there's going to be at least 2 out of these 4 teams are going to be in the college football national championship. You have Penn State, Notre Dame, and you have Ohio State and Texas.
Speaking of, to round it out, I don't think we've talked about these since the first round. So your byes, all 4 of your bye teams got eliminated. Georgia, Boise State, Oregon, and Arizona State were all eliminated.
That sounds like the baseball playoffs, doesn't it?
It does. Bye weeks are not good for everyone, and what they don't take into consideration is all of the teams get a bye week because of the Army-Navy week.
Mm-hmm.
They should have started these games, all 12 of them, the week after that. There should be no bye in this playoff. That's
or
just my
they should have
opinion.
started them the week of Army-Navy.
Yeah. And that be the bye week for the other 4 teams. We shouldn't be going this late into it. Anyway, first round, Texas beats Clemson. Ohio State beats Tennessee by a lot. Penn State beats SMU by a lot. Notre Dame beats Indiana by 10. second round, Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, instant classic, double overtime thriller. Everybody learns who Cam Scatterbo is, and he cannot be stopped. That SEC defense, that elite group of guys, had the hardest time stopping that young man. And there was one of those montages in the middle, a dedication to Cam and where he comes from. He used to put on his older brother's shoulder pads and run into the telephone pole until he couldn't get up. Yeah. And his mom's like, no wonder all these other kids get carted off the field. And he's used to hitting inanimate objects until he hurts himself. And then he heals, and then he does it again. Yep. So Cam Scatterbo, first ever player in Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl history to win the Offensive Player of the Game award on the losing team.
Yep.
Texas wins that one on a pick at the goal line. It came down to the final play of the game. They win 39-31. Ohio State absolutely slapped Oregon off the field in the Rose Bowl.
Which was a surprise.
Very much a surprise. Oregon undefeated season is now over. They won their conference. They got 2.5 weeks off, and then they came and they got absolutely bull rushed by Ohio State. And in my opinion, the most embarrassing Rose Bowl of my lifetime.
Yeah.
And then the Fiesta Bowl, Penn State punched Boise State in the mouth over and over repetitively for 4 quarters and left with a 31-14 victory. And then the busted and battered Bulldogs go into the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans the day after a ISIS attack and a terrorist attack. And they dropped game 2 touchdowns to Notre Dame in a 23-10 finish, and quite possibly the greatest Notre Dame team in the past 40 years. So that puts the Final Four teams in the first ever college football playoff championship bracket to being the Texas, Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl Classic. That will be played on January 10th at 7:30. And then the Capital One Orange Bowl in Miami will be played on January 9th at 7:30 between Penn State and Notre Dame. The winners of those games will play in the championship on January 20th.
Are you ready for some picks?
Yeah. I got Texas by a touchdown only because I hate Ohio State. Even if they win, I would not change my pick. I would try to live in a different reality. So Texas by 50. I hope that they get the power of the McConaughey in them, and he gives them some kind of all right speech before the game starts, and they really get into it. I hope that Quinn Ewers plays better than he did in the Peach Bowl, and he was 20 for 30 with no turnovers in the Peach Bowl. I hope that he's 35 for 37 with 4 tuds and a rushing touchdown and no turnovers. I hope Quinn Ewers absolutely destroys this Ohio State team.
Let's just forfeit both these teams because I can't stand either one of them.
I cannot stand Ohio State.
I'm going to have to choose the lesser 2 evils and choose Texas.
I hope so.
I just have this sickening feeling that Ohio State's going to win, and
I do too.
And I don't want that.
I don't want it either. This feels like another one of those ESPN 30 for 30 Ohio State movies.
Okay, Texas fans, leave your horns, leave all your cattle and everything at home.
Leave your trash in the stands.
I got the secret weapon for you. Bring your corn cobs out, because Ryan Day, he eats that corn the long way. You bring that corn out, he's going to be too distracted to be coaching the foosball. Bring out the corn.
Anybody that don't get it, get on your Urban Dictionary.
Yeah.
Now, the Capital One Orange Bowl, Penn State and Notre Dame, I hope Notre Dame wins by 3 touchdowns. I just do.
I think Notre Dame is going to play their type of game against this Penn State defense. They're going to run. They're going to run. They're going to run.
I think it's going to look just like the Georgia game, but Riley Leonard has 2 passing touchdowns in this one. Just to add to it, so that would make it 35-17.
Yeah, the Penn State secondary is nowhere near as good as the Georgia secondary.
And maybe, you know what, maybe Penn State shows up like they did against SMU. Maybe they show up like they did against Boise State. But even if they show up like that, I still like Notre Dame.
Yeah, this Notre Dame team is far superior. And, yeah, Notre Dame's going to win. And Notre Dame is probably going to have maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes worth of possession time.
Yep. Then in the natty that we hope we get, Texas, Notre Dame, who you got?
Notre Dame. I think the Notre Dame defense is going to force Texas to make mistakes. I think that, like I said, the whole thing with Notre Dame is they're going to control the ball. They're going to keep the ball out of Texas's hands. Texas can go down and score real quick, but you do that, you're playing into Notre Dame's hands, especially if you're playing from behind. They're going to run. They have that three-headed monster of running backs. Then they have Riley Leonard, who's consistent at quarterback, and he can run it too. But their defense is what's going to create turnovers. They're going to blitz, and even though they're undersized defensive line, they're quick. They're fast. They can get around that edge, and they can get after it.
They proved that against Georgia, and they're very well disciplined on defense. They do great stunts, and they do incredible blitz packages where your defensive linemen drop into coverage and your middle linebacker blitzes.
I ain't never seen a team that can blitz both their safeties and have linebackers drop back. That's how athletic they are. They blitz both their safeties against Georgia to cut back on the RPO, and it was like, oh, someone's got to be open. Nope. The linebackers are fast enough to go back and help out the corners in coverage.
Because, well, you got guys like Dylan Bell, who is an insanely good route runner, but he can't catch the dadgum football.
Yeah.
That's a different game if he catches that post route. All by myself.
It's also a different game if you don't have a ref that stands in the green.
Yeah, man. Watching the film, they took a steal where he stepped in the green. He was getting back into the white because he saw the kid as he's running. So he's watching the play. He gets into the green, and you see his chin kind of move, and you see his pupils. So he sees the kid, and he could have stepped just a little left and stayed in the white. But instead, he clips the kid, and it's a 15-yard flag every single time. You cannot touch the ref. Every other instant, it's a sideline warning. Then it's a 5-yard, then it's a personal foul. But if you touch that referee, it's a 15-yard penalty. That kid will never play football.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't care if he was a walk-on. He'll never play football.
But to sum it up, Notre Dame is going to win the national championship. And, we're biased because they're in our logo, but I do want to say that if Georgia loses, at least they lost to the national champion.
That's what I like to say, too. And here's my final thoughts. I'm going to say what my heart tells me to say every time. I think Notre Dame makes it. No holds bar, hands down. Notre Dame is there putting up a fight. I want Texas to win. And if they get to the Natty, I think they're in a dogfight with Notre Dame. I think that they can win. I don't think they will because Stark has yet to win in the big stage. He's been on those teams. But if you notice anything about these previously winning coaches other than Saban, they had to get there and lose. Then when they got back, they won. So I think Texas gets there and loses. I think Notre Dame gets there and wins. I think if Ohio State goes to the Natty, I think the worst happens, and I think Ohio State wins it all. I don't think it matters who they play. I hope that Texas wins.
Well, I think that pretty much sums it up for this episode. Just a real quick follow up of everything going on, but we'll be back. We'll be back next week with some more content for you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening, and keep your chin up. Happy holidays. Go Dogs. Football season's getting ready to wrap up.
Go Irish.
Go Irish. I think we're all either Texas or Notre Dame fans right now. And one last thing I wanted to touch on before we go away. All-Star voting is open in the NBA right now. If you go to NBA.com, you can vote for your All-Stars. You can vote for people in the front court and the back court. You can vote for the West or the East. And each time you vote, you enter yourself in a chance to win to go to the All-Star game. So the NBA might stink watching it on TV, but an all-exclusive paid trip to go to the NBA All-Star game was pretty cool. And who knows, you might get in front of somebody that goes, hey, what do we need to change?
Vote Hawks and Celtics down the line.
Yeah, that's right. Trae Young, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, go home teams.
Yep.
So sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but always get back up, guys. Have a great night, great afternoon, great morning, whatever time of day it is. Go Dogs. It's just the show. Over and out.